Electricity. It's something every home and business in the country needs to survive. Since the end of World War II, when the first nuclear power came online, we've been increasingly relying on nuclear power for energy. Now, there's a lot of stigma surrounding nuclear power, and the truth is that the newer reactors are not only extremely safe, but getting safer. The worst nuclear accident in U.S. history, 3 Mile Island, the TMI-2 reactor, melted down and released a bunch of radioactive steam into the atmosphere. That was a significant nuclear accident. But to date, there still hasn't been a single reported health issue directly attributed to that nuclear accident, aside from the emotional stresses from overzealous reporters. There are several different reactor designs that are used today for nuclear power. On my chart here, I have simplified versions of two of the most common, the boiling water reactor and the pressurized water reactor. The boiling water reactor, not a very difficult concept. Water goes into the reactor core, gets heated up and turned into steam, turns a turbine, it spins the generator to make power. Goes back into the condenser where cool water condenses the steam back into water, goes back in the core and repeats the cycle. There's also a pressurized water reactor. Now in this, the coolant goes to a steam generator where it heats up secondary water, which is not radioactive and does not come into contact with the core. Then it gets circulated back to the reactor. The steam generator then turns a steam turbine, which spins the turbine to create electricity, gets condensed by cooling water, goes through a feed pump back into the steam generator. These are simplified designs, but most of the civilian plants are boiling water reactors. The designs we have today have a core damage frequency estimate of 1 × 10⁻⁵. Now that's 0.0001 instances of core damage per reactor per year. So, based on that, maybe in a few hundred years we might have an accident. But that's core damage. That's not even a nuclear accident. Core damage can be anything. The core getting too hot and becoming unusable. That still doesn't mean that fission products are released into the atmosphere or that there could be any health issue involved. The advanced boiling water reactor, which has received final approval from the NRC, and there are several scheduled to be built, has a core damage frequency of 2 × 10⁻⁷. And then the economic simplified boiling water reactor has a core damage frequency of 3 × 10⁸. Now, these estimates seem a little bit astronomical, but they're based on hard research data. The likelihood of an actual accident is pretty remote. Nuclear power is safe and becoming safer and more cost effective. For example, the economic simplified boiling water reactor is called the economic simplified because it's cheaper to build. It has no coolant pumps. It relies on natural circulation to circulate the coolant through the core. It also makes emergency systems from the design simpler and more reliable. The cost of nuclear power plants is still much higher than your average coal or natural gas plant. Now, when I say cost, I mean initial costs. That includes decommissioning the plant and plans for disposing of all the radioactive waste. After that, nuclear power plants are far more cost effective. I have here average cost operating expenses from the Electric Power Annual in 2000, showing that nuclear power is on average costs 1.8 cents per kilowatt hour. Fossil steam is 2.3 cents. Hydroelectric's cheaper, but but that's very limited by geography. Other fossil fuels are 5 cents per kilowatt hour. In 2003, MIT issued a report called The Future of Nuclear Power. In that report, they estimated that nuclear power would cost 6.7 cents per kilowatt hour to generate in the future. Now this is in the near future, within the next 5 to 10 years. I went online and looked up my FPL bill. Last month I paid 11.2 cents per kilowatt hour. So even with the significant profit margin for the electric companies, nuclear power is much more of a long-term solution to our energy needs. Now FPL uses about 19% nuclear power for its customers in Florida. The other major supplier of electricity, Progress Energy, uses 35% nuclear power. It stands to reason that we would want to limit our dependence on foreign countries and fluctuations. The ore used to create the fuel for the nuclear reactors is more expensive, but it's also a one-time cost, and you get 20 to 40 years of energy production for that. Furthermore, you can replace individual fuel cells in the reactor while it's still running for some reactor designs. Look at the gas prices recently. They skyrocketed up. They've gone back down. It's still not to their previous levels, but just the fluctuations alone point out how much we depend on foreign oil and even domestic oil and domestic oil companies. We need a much more secure and predictable source of electrical power for the future. And nuclear power seems to fit the bill. You guys have any questions?
No.